guys, it's Phil from White Schwartz Chicago again, and I'm bringing you a non-White Schwartz deck profile thingy-majig. So, 2 weeks ago, from the date of making this video, what was it? Today's the day after Christmas, so the 14th? Yeah, the 14th. So on the 14th, I attended the King of Cardfight Championship. So the King of Cardfight is a series of tournaments that was held around the Midwest, where it was basically like, I'd say a third chance at regionals for Cardfight. So in order to go to the championship, you had to basically top 4 in a qualifier. There were like 9 held, and the format was conducted as best 2 out of 3, and I was able to come out on top. Yes. And this is my deck profile, and this is the trophy right in front of the mat. And here's the insignia of the trophy. See, it's kind of dark. King of Cardfight Cup 2013 first place champion, the King of Cardfight. So it was, it was a tough journey. It was basically playing against the best in the Midwest and basically being able to make it to the top 4 in a best 2 out of 3 format, and then participating in the national championship kind of thing, where it was again best 2 out of 3, but you were playing against the people who had earned the invitation, so you were playing against the best people in the Midwest. So here's the so the deck I played was Prism Bermuda Triangle, and I'm basically going to do the deck profile now, and then maybe talk a little bit more about some of my matchups and basically what the format was. So let's put this away. Shiny cup trophy. So before I get into the deck profile, let's talk a little bit more about the King of Cardfight tournament series in general. It was, basically, like I said before, a third regionals, a third chance for people who might have scrubbed out in the Cardfight Vanguard World Championship. So it was more like a redemption for people who had, been eliminated because LOL Greylock, LOL Sack, LOL Double Crit. In best of 1 format, you can't really prevent that stuff. Best 2 out of 3 format, you still can't, really stop it, but it's mitigated to some degree. But going into the King of Cardfight, the King of Cardfight Championship and regionals, you knew you wouldn't be going in and, leaving after 2 losses, because there were people who had an X2 record who were able to just squeeze in to the top 8. So for the regionals, depending on the size, it usually for regional qualifiers for the King of Cardfight, it was 45 minutes, best 2 out of 3 Swiss, and depending on the number of people, it was either cut to top 4 or top 8. Then you had to play it out, and only the top 4 got invitations to the national championship. And then after that, on December 14th was when the national championship was held, and only people who had an invite would be able to attend and participate. So there were a total of about 26 people who attended, despite the weather, because it was snowing, well, I like to say blizzarding, pretty hard here in the Midwest, where the championship was held on the day it was held. So there were a lot of people who were probably stuck or couldn't make it, but 26 people showed and played it out, cut to top 8, and then basically play it out until there was an undefeated an undisputed King of Cardfight Cup first place champion. So today I'm going to profile my deck that I brought. I walked in because, because it was on the 14th, it was a day after the official release of Set 10 Triumphant Return of the King of Knights for English Vanguard. And basically going into this event, you either had to go in with a deck you knew how to play and were confident in, or you go in with an Eradicator or a Liberator deck and hope you kill everybody, which was kind of the general, what's the saying? The general agenda of everybody, most of the people who attended. They walked in with a shiny new Eradicator deck and didn't know the ins and outs of it. Now, I'm not saying everyone who walked in with a Eradicator deck was bad with it. It was just most people had not had the proper time to get acquainted with their deck. And that was really the deciding factor in this championship. Because this isn't like any other games. This is Vanguard, where you kind of need to form. You kind of need luck on your side. And, being together with the deck you know best kind of attributes to that luck. So without further ado, let's go on to the deck profile because I've been talking too long. So starting Vanguard, first Vanguard, Prism Smile Coral. She's a Prism unit. Whenever another Bermuda Triangle is returned to my hand, I'm going to use the term bounced here. Whenever Bermuda Triangle is bounced to my hand, she also bounces. So she's a starting Vanguard with 4 runners, so she moves. And then if I bounce Bermuda Triangle, there's a free 10k shield in my hand. So it's pretty important. Most of the time, people try and kill this with Linchu, and I'd be back a turn or so, because then I lost the booster and I lost the 10k shield, so it's double the whammo. We'll talk more about the matchups later. So first it's Coral. And I played 4 copies of Prism Miracle Canary with critical trigger, 4 copies of Prism Miracle Adria and draw triggers, and 4 copies of Prism Miracle Timmer, the heal trigger. Yes, she is drowning a cat underwater. So the thing is, when I was building my deck, after considering all possible Prism triggers, I didn't want to run stand triggers because the general focus of the deck didn't really allow for stand triggers to be used. So I knew I had 4 slots that had to have non-Prism triggers. And the deck in general is pretty aggressive. So in order to support that aggression, I played a total of 6 crits. So I played 2 more crits in the form of Gunslinger Star Florida and 2 draws in Heartfelt Ale Fundy. Fundy's skill is you can put her in the zone and then give one of my Bermuda Triangles 3000 power for the turn. So this is a Margot clone, essentially. So total of the deck would be 6 crit, 6 draw. Pretty, after a lot of extensive testing in the weeks leading up to the championship, it was basically what I found to be kind of the only viable trigger lineup. So let's move on to Great Ones. So I play 1 copy of the SP Prism Promise Late. This, her skill, 6000 power, grade 1. Soul Blast 1, if she boosts a unit name, Prism Promise Labrador. You can pay the Soul Blast cost. If you do that, unit gets 5000 power to the end of the battle, effectively turning any column with Labrador into a 22k column. 22 here, 22 here, 22 anywhere. Of course, Soul Blast 1, it's kind of iffy, but we'll leave it at that. And then I play 1 copy of the regular late, so 1 SP, 1 regular. I would prefer both SPs if I could. I play 4 copies of Mermaid Idol Ellie, so 4 copies of the Perfect Art. It was, pretty standard. The only thing this could have been would be a Prism Perfect Art. A Perfect Art with Prism in the name, but that didn't exist. And it was basically trying to play around cards. Prism, you kind of had to manage a lot of stuff, and you know, damage was one of the important parts because this thing didn't have Prism in the name. And if it landed in your damage zone, you were kind of in some trouble. But we'll explain more about that later. I play 4 copies of Prism Romance Mercure. So she was a grade 1 7k. Whenever she attacks, if I have a Vanguard with Prism in the name, she becomes 10k. So it's a 10k attacker at grade 1. And had Prism in the name, so kind of staple, needed to be run. And then I play 1, 2, 3 copies of Prism Image Clear. Clear's ability, so she's grade 1 7k. Whenever she's bounced, where she's returned to my hand from the rear guard circle. If I have a Bermuda Triangle Vanguard, I can pay the cost of a Soul Blast cost of 1. If I do, I give another Bermuda Triangle unit 4,000 power until the end of the turn. Now this was a pretty keystone part of the deck because it allowed me to turn this into 11k instantly before attacking, so it could go to 11 plus 3, 14k, poke across ride. It could, it basically was allowed to, also make columns pretty stupid in the end game if you had the Soul Blast cost. Of course, this was all a lot of micromanagement and knowing when to use this skill at the proper time. So the last 2 grade 1s that I ran were 2 copies of Sweet's Harmony Mona. Now in this deck, grade 1, you didn't, you could have maxed out on every single Prism unit, but that would affect how the deck played because you wanted to max out on Prism units that were actually useful. So what I did was I did as many of a Prism unit that I found useful in Clear, Mercure, and of course Late. Late only had 6,000 power, so that was kind of a drawback as to why I didn't run more of her. And Clear herself is pretty vanilla until you do the Soul Blast cost thing, and usually you didn't do that unless you had a Break Ride or you had Labrador in the Vanguard circle. So Mona is a grade 1 7k. Her ability is Counterblast 1. When this is placed on rear guard circle, if you have a Bermuda Triangle Vanguard, you can pay the cost of any Counterblast. And if you do, you can choose a Bermuda Triangle rear guard and return it to your hand. So this works in tandem with cards like the starter Coral, because as soon as this came on the field, you want to take something back. You bounce it, and then Coral follows suit and bounces as well. What I like to call this is the Kimnara of the deck, because I used to play Kagero as my deck. This was a very useful utility card, and I felt like, it was better to run this over the only other viable card that, there were quite a few viable cards. I could have ran Mermaid Idol Feluca to soul charge for Clear or Late skills. I could have ran an 8k vanilla in Mermaid Idol Senna in order to, basically put it behind Prism Image Vert and make 21. Pretty important in this meta. And, or make 18 with a 10k. But I felt that this was a pretty, it just felt right when I put this card into the deck because it fit with what Bermuda Triangles did best. And that is returning cards to your hand from the field. So you would commit early, and maybe around mid-game or so, you would take those cards back and form yourself a pretty nice defense. So that's grade 1s. Let's move on to grade 2s. I play 1 copy of SP Prism Promise Celtic. Gotta run the SP because I pulled this from my case. So, Celtic's ability, so she's a grade 2 with 9,000 power. When she's returned to my hand from the rear guard circle, just like Clear, you can Soul Blast 1 and give another Bermuda Triangle unit 4,000 power until the end of the turn. So again, this helped for making explosive numbers or just making numbers that were good enough to hurt the opponent, depending on what their Vanguard was. And then I played 1, 2, 3, 4 copies of Prism Smile Liguarian. Ligurian is your 10k vanilla grade 2. So not too much to say here. Perfect ride target, perfect call target. It was pretty good. You want to run 4 because you want to ride her. You don't want to ride this because Wingo Brave says hello. So I was playing 4 copies of Ligurian. 10k vanilla, pretty standard. Then I played 4 copies of Prism Romance Lumiere. So Lumiere is grade 2 9k. Her ability is when she attacks, so you have a Vanguard or Prism in the name. She gains 3,000 power, so she's a 12k attacker. So you put this in front of anything, hit for 19, hit for 19. Or if you Soul Blast it with Clear or Celtic, you give the power to her, and then she attacks for 23, which is stupid. It's pretty good. And she also helps support the early game rush, so you could be like, ride this call is cool. 12k, 10 plus whatever you have behind it. Pretty awesome. And then the last of my grade 2s would be 2 copies of Prism Image Rosa. So when Rosa attacks, if I have a Premier Triangle, Vanguard, Rearguard with Limit Break 4, she gains 3,000 power. So she goes from 8k to a nice 11k. So this was only, this was again the only other viable unit to be ran. It had Prism in the name and it's 11k, so swing 11k by itself. Pretty important. That was the grade 2s. Grade 3, I ran 1 copy of Prism Image Vert in SP. So Prism Image Vert, and of course I ran 3 copies of the regular one, but we're going to talk about the SP one because it's SP. So Prism Image Vert is a break ride for Bermuda Triangles. So when you ride a Bermuda Triangle on this unit, first you draw a card, and you choose up to 2 of your Bermuda Triangle rearguards, return them to your hand, and you choose your Vanguard, and it gains 10,000 power until the end of the turn. And of course, when she attacks, if you have 4 more Bermuda Triangles on your turn, she gets 2,000 power, so it becomes 13k on attack, and basically 11k on defense. So most of the time, you find yourself break riding Vert over herself, and then you would gain the 10,000. You'll probably draw a card, gain some cards back, maybe reform your field a little bit. This card itself is just really good because it instantly replaces itself with a draw from the top of your deck as soon as you break ride it. And then after that, it's just 11k, maybe 21, 23, important numbers, but Vert was just so crucial to the deck, and it's a really good break ride unit. So of course she has Limit Break 4, so she works with Rosa, and she looks nice right next to Rosa. And the reason I only have 1 is because I only pulled 1 in my case. These are going to become SP soon, hopefully. So then I ran, rounding out the grade 3 lineup, 2 copies of an SP Prism Promised Labrador, of course 1 copy of the regular. This should be SP also, but I couldn't find one in time for the championship. So Labrador's skill is, first, it's her Limit Break skill is when she attacks the Vanguard, I can choose up to 3 units with Prism in the card name from my hand and call them to open rearguard circles. If I did, she gains 10,000 power and critical until the end of the turn. So she is effectively Phantom Blaster Dragon. And then she has a regular act ability, S Special Counter Blast. Counter Blast 1 card with Prism in the name. If you do, you choose 1 rearguard with Prism in the name and you return to your hand. So this effectively combos with cards like Clear, Celtic, and of course, Coral. So if you bounce anything with this, you would get to take Coral back also. There's effectively the boss unit of the deck, and usually you just ride it as a finisher or when you think you can push for a game. because 10,000 in critical is scary. You know, break ride this on vert. Oh look, I'm 21 unboosted. Oh, now if I attack with limit break, I'm 31 unboosted. So I hope you have a perfect guard. And you know that was most of there were a good few times where I did the break ride on this and they didn't have a perfect guard. They had to drop like, oh, how much is it? 31. Here you go. 4 10Ks. 51. No pass. Okay, that's fine. I'll put everything on the rear guard. So that's the deck itself. Let's talk about the matchups that I had on the day of the King of Cardfight Championship. So the first round I was playing against Eradicators. Eradicator and Narukami. It was a mix between Gauntlet Buster, Dragonic Descendant, and the Break Ride unit. So it was a mix between that because people were probably playing around the fact that Descendant might get hit to 2 per deck. And it was really tough. Game 1, I remember we were able to edge each other out. He had like, I was able to push him into a corner and then he pushed back, and you know it was pretty standard. The matchup, it was really about knowing your matchup. It was pretty important because I had played practice matches against my friend who played Eradicators for a good month before this online, and it was a lot of practice. It was just knowing what to do, playing around Lynchu, playing around Descendant, playing around Gauntlet Buster, avoiding that crit, and I wasn't able to win it, so I lost the first round, and that put a downer on me because I was like, crap, this means I have a chance to not top and I'd be done for the day. So in round 2 I got matched up against Prism Bermuda Triangle, so it was a mirror match and I effectively took the match because I was able to do awesome stuff. Round 3 I was playing against Dragonic Overlord DN / Dauntless Drive, so it was Dauntless Dote. And effectively, it was, again, knowing the matchup. I had, a good amount of experience with the deck. Basically, it was playing around, Prism's strengths, which was being pretty aggressive against that deck. Because that deck is relatively slow. It's not slow because they minus you pretty hard, but at the same time, it was a little bit slow. I was able to take that match after a lot of back and forth matching. It was pretty stupid. The guy was healing when I didn't want him to heal. He was getting draw triggers up the ass. It was really nutty. So then the 4th round, I was playing against Nova Grapplers. So I was playing against Beast Deity Nova Grapplers, which was okay, I guess. The guy couldn't really get anything going off. I was able to push him pretty fast before he was able to start spamming Beast Deities against me because, as we all know, if you're playing against Nova Grappler, anything with Beast Deity in the name must die. And this deck doesn't do any of that. Oh look, you have something in rear guard with Beast Deity. I'll kill it off. Nope. Gotta attack it manually. So it was kind of problematic, but I was able to work around it. And then the 5th and final round, I played against Dauntless Dote again. So I had to play against Dragonic Lord DN. This time the guy who was using it knew what he was doing. It was a lot harder of a match, but unfortunately, great luck. Even best 2 out of 3 does happen, and I kind of played too aggressively for him to keep up, and he wasn't able to take back the match. So right after that, it was a cut to top 8, and I effectively placed 6th place on Swiss rankings, so I was able to make it in. So then the top 8 first match, I was playing against Liberator Gold Paladin. Now, this is one of the matches that I did remember. The first match was kind of bad because I didn't have any 10k shields in my hand. So the guy effectively pushed me to 5 really fast, and I wasn't able to recover from that. So it was like, okay, try and minimize the damage that he had already caused by poking out his rear guards with stuff like this, making sure the S guard didn't hit, killing them off with Lumiere if possible. It was a really back and forth match during match 1, but he took it. He took round 1. Round 2, I remember he had to fill his field with grade 3s and effectively couldn't get the break ride off. So I was able to play around that and clinch round 2. Round 3 was where it really came down. Came down to a wire because this determined who would be going into the top 4. So round 3, he had filled his field pretty fast. He had full field by turn 6 or 7, and effectively my field was pretty bad, and I had to make sure that I pushed at the right time. Spam 21 with this. That was effectively how it turned out. I was able to out edge him in cards because he filled his rear guards with grade 3s again, and I was able to keep intercepts on the board and save cards in my hand. So that was I was able to clinch a very close victory in game 3. So then after that we got cut to the top 4. I moved on to the top 4. So then the top 4 match I played against Aquaforce, and I knew the damage that deck can do. It was the Glory Maelstrom / Maelstrom build. So the guy had Diamantis. He did not ride it either game, so that was good. So the first game I was grade locked. It happens. Needless to say, I lost, and you'll see it in the videos that Card Capital will put up. Game 2, I was able to out edge him in cards by being mega aggressive with Lumiere. I was playing really greedy. I played with no hand. It was pretty stupid, and of course I was able to win that one. And then the third game, it was again I was out edging him in cards. I was able to feel the momentum of the game shift when I spammed Lumiere. I spammed a couple of Mercures, and then I was playing pretty aggressively. Actually, no. Let's go back to game 2. Game 2, I actually wasn't in the best position, now that I think about it. He was able to push me out of all my cards, and I had one turn where I had one chance to turn around and win, and he had cross-ridden Glory Maelstrom, and I had Labrador in the Vanguard circle, and basically I had clear to work with, and I just drew into a heal trigger because that's how the game works. So I'm like, crap, how do I turn this game around? And you'll see it in the match. I won't ruin it for you because then that would make Card Capital's upload kind of useless. So that one I was able to edge by. And then game 3, that was the one where I was being mega aggressive with Lumiere and Mercure. And that game I was able to feel the momentum shift, and he couldn't recover, and I was able to take that game. So then we go on to the final match, and I was playing against Spike Brothers, the Bad End Dragger build. And of course, the one rule about playing against Bad End Dragger: if you do not have 120k shield when they do the break right, you probably lost. Unless you were at 2 or 3. And even then, you'd be out of a lot of cards, or you'd be matching them in damage. So game 1, I can't remember what happened there. I think I got grade locked. I was able to swing back. Yeah. Game 1 I was grade locked, but I was able to swing back, and I effectively took that match. I took that game. Game 2, I had a really bad hand, and I don't think I played it to the best of my ability. He was able to push me really fast, and like again, I was trying to avoid Bad Drager's limit break, the break ride unit. So effectively, I was killing off his rear guards and pissing everybody off and killing time because I was trying to pull back, but couldn't. And he took game 2. Then we move on to the final game 3, and that one, well, we'll leave it as a secret because that way Card Capital can get free subscriptions. Because it was a really good game. It was pretty back and forth, but again, it was more of feeling the momentum of the game shift. And once you feel the game momentum shift, it can't be recovered. So I was effectively able to clinch first place, and now I have this cool championship mat. So that was my deck profile and basically my report on the regional. Yeah, it was pretty good. I was able to effectively prove myself, and yeah, having a championship feels good. Championship cup trophy, got Matt. And of course, this series is not done. The King of Cardfight committee will be holding another one in spring, so I hope to see everyone compete in that. But I don't know. I might and I might not compete in that because effectively, I want to win a championship before the end of what I like to call the golden age format, because this set 10 had just come out, and eradicators, although they can kill off your field, it's you can play around it. Bermuda Triangle can play around having their field killed off, but what I would like to call next format, the 2-deck format, effectively Link Joker and Revenger Shadow Paladin. That's basically the format where this deck isn't as viable anymore, because whenever they lock your stuff, this break ride becomes a lot less effective, and you also lost a slot for Labrador's limit break. So probably going to take a break for a while and play more White Schwartz. So yeah, this is Phil from White Schwartz Chicago. Any comments, like, unlike, whatever, like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye!